The manicured lawns of Harmony Glades whispered promises of peace and tranquility. Each house, a near-identical shade of beige, stood in obedient alignment, a testament to the HOA's unwavering commitment to uniformity. Birds chirped a cheerful, yet somehow synthetic, melody, and the air hummed with the quiet efficiency of lawnmowers adhering to the strict Saturday morning schedule that IT was, on the surface, paradise. But beneath the veneer of perfection, a subtle oppression simmered. Fences couldn't exceed 4 feet, holiday decorations were strictly regulated, and heaven forbid your trash cans were visible from the street for more than 12 hours. My own little rebellion against this beige utopia was my shed, a charmingly dilapidated structure in the back corner of my property. It was a repository for forgotten dreams, half-finished projects, and the comforting scent of aged wood and motor oil. It was my sanctuary, my escape from the relentless conformity that I should have known the peace wouldn't last. A storm was brewing, and her name, whispered with a mixture of fear and resentment among the neighbors, was Karen. Her shadow stretched long, even before she officially arrived. Karen arrived like a freshly starched white shirt at a biker rally. She wasn't just new to the HOA. She became the HO elected president in a landslide victory fueled by promises of curb appeal enhancements and proactive code enforcement. She wasted no time in asserting her authority. Her personality was as sharp and unforgiving as a freshly honed lawnmower blade. Every interaction was a meticulously crafted power play, delivered with a saccharine smile that never quite reached her eyes. She spoke of community standards and property values with the fervor of a televangelist, convinced that her vision of pristine conformity was the only path to salvation. Within days of assuming her position, Karen began her reign of terror, or, as she called it, Operation Harmony Enhancement. She patrolled the streets with a clipboard in hand, meticulously documenting every rogue weed, every slightly faded paint job, every misplaced garden gnome. It was clear that her gaze, sooner or later, would fall upon my beloved shed, and I knew, with a sinking feeling, that she wouldn't approve. The inevitable arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped under my door with the stealth of a seasoned assassin. It was a formal notice from the Harmony Glades Homeowners Association, emblazoned with the HOA logo and Karen's signature, a flourish that seemed almost gleeful. The letter was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive legalese. IT cited multiple code violations pertaining to my shed: disrepair, unsightliness, failure to maintain aesthetic harmony, and, my personal favorite, general offensiveness to the community's sensibilities. The language was cold and impersonal, yet I could practically hear Karen's voice dripping with condescension. The demand was clear: remove the shed within 30 days, or face escalating fines and potential legal action. 30 days to dismantle a piece of my history, a tangible representation of my individuality. 30 days to surrender to the beige conformity of Harmony Glades. 30 days to fight. And I knew, as I crumpled the notice in my fist, that I wouldn't go down without a fight. My initial reaction was pure, unadulterated fury. I paced the house, muttering darkly about tyrannical HOAs and the erosion of personal freedom. Then, the adrenaline subsided, replaced by a grim determination. I wouldn't let Karen win without a fight. I dove headfirst into the labyrinthine world of HOA rules and regulations. The bylaws, covenants, and architectural guidelines became my new bedtime reading. I scrutinized every clause, every comma, searching for loopholes, ambiguities, anything I could use to my advantage. I argued that the shed, while perhaps not aesthetically pleasing to all, served a valuable purpose. Storage for gardening tools, a workspace for hobbies, a shelter for stray cats, a slight exaggeration. I even tried to appeal to their sense of sentimentality, claiming the shed had been in my family for generations, a blatant lie, but worth a shot. I built my case, meticulously documenting every argument, preparing for a showdown with Karen and her beige brigade. The battle lines were drawn. Emboldened by my research, I decided to rally the troops, or at least what passed for troops in Harmony Glades. I envisioned a united front, a chorus of voices demanding Karen back down. The reality was far less inspiring. Most neighbors offered polite smiles and nervous assurances that they understood my situation. But when it came to actually doing anything, they suddenly had pressing appointments, unexpected family emergencies, or a sudden, inexplicable fear of confrontation. Old Mrs. Henderson, whose prize-winning roses were constantly threatened by Karen's arbitrary pruning regulations, offered a sympathetic ear and a lukewarm cup of tea. Young Timmy next door, who secretly admired the shed's cool, rusty vibe, gave me a thumbs up when his mother wasn't looking, but concrete support? Forget about it. Fear of Karen, it seemed, was a far more powerful force than neighborly solidarity. That I was on my own. Karen, predictably, was not swayed by my legalistic arguments or my desperate pleas for neighborly compassion. Instead, she doubled down. The fines started arriving with alarming regularity, each one larger than the last. She'd found new violations. 2. Tall grass, even though I mowed religiously. Improperly stored garbage cans, even though they were always in the garage. And excessive noise, even though I lived a quiet, solitary life. It felt like I was being systematically targeted. Karen seemed to be everywhere, her watchful eyes constantly scrutinizing my property. Searching for any excuse to levy another fine, I started to feel like a prisoner in my own home, constantly on edge, waiting for the next wave of harassment. The pressure was mounting, and I knew I couldn't sustain this for much longer. The shed, it seemed, was going to cost me more than just money. It was costing me my peace of mind. The mounting fines were crippling me. The threat of legal action loomed large, a dark cloud hanging over my head. I was running out of options. And the thought of losing the shed, of surrendering to Karen's tyranny, was unbearable. In a moment of desperation, almost as a last-ditch effort, I decided to research the shed's history. I knew practically nothing about its origins. It had simply been there when I bought the property. But maybe, just maybe, there was something in its past that could save it. I started digging through old property records, scouring online archives, and even visiting the local library. It was a long shot, I knew, but with the clock ticking and Karen's pressure intensifying, I was willing to try anything, no matter how improbable. The shed had become more than just a shed. It was a symbol of my resistance, and I wasn't ready to give up without a fight. Even if that fight meant diving into the dusty annals of local history. Hours blurred into days as I sifted through dusty documents and faded photographs. I felt like an archaeologist, painstakingly unearthing the secrets of the past. Just when I was about to give up, buried deep within a forgotten corner of the county records office, I found it. A hand-drawn map, dating back to the late 18th century, depicting the original settlement of Harmony Glades. And there, marked with a small, unassuming square, was a structure in the exact location of my shed. The accompanying notes, written in elegant script, suggested the building was a workshop or storage facility used by one of the town's founding families. Could it be? Could my dilapidated shed actually be a relic from the town's earliest days? The implications were staggering. If the documents were accurate, the shed wasn't just an eyesore. It was a piece of living history. A potential landmark, and Karen, in her relentless pursuit of beige conformity, was about to tear it down. Armed with the map and accompanying notes, I contacted the Harmony Glades Historical Society, and I nervously presented my findings to Mrs. Abernathy, a woman who seemed to have been born wearing spectacles and smelling of old books. She listened intently, her eyes widening behind her thick lenses as I laid out my case. After a week of painstaking research and cross-referencing, Mrs. Abernathy called me with the news. The Historical Society had confirmed the shed's potential significance. They had found additional records supporting its age and connection to the founding family. They even provided me with an official letter and documentation attesting to its historical value, stating it was a rare and remarkably preserved example of early colonial craftsmanship. Suddenly, the tables had turned. The shed wasn't just an eyesore to be demolished. It was a treasure to be protected, and Karen, in her blind pursuit of perfection, was about to stumble into a historical hornet's nest. I couldn't wait to see the look on her face. I requested an emergency meeting with the HOA board. The atmosphere in the community clubhouse was thick with tension. Karen sat at the head of the table, a smug expression on her face, no doubt expecting me to grovel and beg for mercy. Instead, I laid out my evidence. The ancient map, the Historical Society's letter, photographs of the shed's construction that hinted at its age. I presented my case calmly and confidently, watching as Karen's smugness slowly dissolved into disbelief. The other board members, previously intimidated by Karen's iron grip, shifted uneasily in their seats. They whispered amongst themselves, their eyes darting between the documents and Karen's increasingly pale face. The air crackled with the anticipation of a power shift. The counterattack had begun, and Karen was about to learn that even the most meticulously planned schemes can crumble in the face of history. Karen was trapped. The evidence was irrefutable. She couldn't simply dismiss the Historical Society's findings. But acknowledging the shed's significance meant admitting she was wrong, a concept that seemed utterly foreign to her. More importantly, destroying a historical landmark would be a PR disaster of epic proportions. The local news would have a field day, portraying her as a heartless villain bent on erasing the town's heritage. The HOA's reputation, already teetering on the brink of public scorn, would be irreparably damaged. I watched as a silent battle raged within her. The desire to enforce her vision of pristine conformity clashed with the very real threat of public humiliation. The smugness had vanished, replaced by a look of bewildered panic. She was caught between a rock and a hard place, and for the first time since her arrival, Karen seemed truly vulnerable. The question now was, which would win? Her ego or her self-preservation? The other board members, sensing Karen's vulnerability and the potential fallout, began to subtly distance themselves. Mr. Peterson, the treasurer, cleared his throat and mumbled something about unforeseen circumstances and the importance of preserving local history. Mrs. Davis, the secretary, nervously adjusted her glasses and suggested they table the matter for further review. Their loyalty, once firmly cemented to Karen's side, was now wavering. They could see the writing on the wall. Karen's star was falling, and they didn't want to be caught in the wreckage. They had initially supported her aggressive tactics, believing they were serving the greater good of the community. But now, faced with the prospect of public ridicule and potential legal battles, they were scrambling to save their own reputations. The herd was turning, and Karen was about to be left behind. The shift in power was palpable. The story, inevitably, leaked. Whether it was a disgruntled board member, a sympathetic neighbor, or Mrs. Abernathy from the Historical Society, I'll never know. But within days, the local news station was camped out in front of my house, eager to document the David and Goliath battle between a homeowner and a ruthless HOA. The news reports painted Karen as a villainous caricature, a symbol of bureaucratic overreach and suburban tyranny. The shed, in contrast, was portrayed as a plucky underdog, a testament to the town's rich history and a symbol of resistance against oppressive conformity. I gave interviews, sharing my story and highlighting the shed's historical significance. The phone rang off the hook with calls from reporters, historians, and even a few Hollywood producers sniffing around for a potential movie deal. The spotlight was on Harmony Glades, and Karen was squarely in the crosshairs. The tide had truly turned. The media firestorm was relentless. Karen became a pariah, her name synonymous with petty tyranny and historical ignorance. The local newspaper ran scathing editorials, and social media exploded with memes mocking her obsession with beige conformity. Within Harmony Glades, the atmosphere was even more hostile. Neighbors who had once cowered in fear now openly glared at her. Her carefully cultivated image of authority crumbled before her eyes. The next HOA meeting. Attendance was record-breaking. Residents demanded answers, accusing her of abusing her power and jeopardizing the community's reputation. The board members, emboldened by the public outcry, openly challenged her decisions. Karen's reign of terror was over. Her authority, once absolute, had evaporated like morning mist. Her downfall was complete. The resolution came swiftly and decisively. At an emergency meeting, the HOA board voted unanimously to officially recognize the shed as a historical landmark, exempting it from all code violations and promising to assist with its preservation. As for Karen, she didn't wait to be formally impeached. Faced with overwhelming public pressure and the complete erosion of her authority, she resigned in disgrace, leaving behind a legacy of petty tyranny and historical blunders. A collective sigh of relief swept through Harmony Glades. The nightmare was over. The oppressive atmosphere began to dissipate, replaced by a newfound sense of community and a cautious optimism for the future. The shed, once threatened with destruction, was now a protected symbol of the town's heritage and a testament to the power of resistance. I became something of a local hero. People stopped me on the street to shake my hand, congratulating me on my tenacity and thanking me for standing up to the HOA. The shed, once a source of contention, was now a beloved landmark, a testament to the town's history and the power of individual resistance. The HOA, eager to rehabilitate its image, even offered to fund a full restoration of the shed, hiring local artisans to repair its weathered walls and preserve its historical integrity. The shed was transformed from a dilapidated eyesore into a charming historical artifact, a point of pride for the entire community. I even received a plaque from the Historical Society, commemorating my role in saving the shed and preserving Harmony Glade's heritage. It was a far cry from the fines and legal threats I had endured just months before. Victory, it seemed, was sweet indeed. Looking back, the whole experience feels surreal. It started with a simple shed and a power-hungry HOA president, and it ended with a community transformed, and a newfound appreciation for history. I learned the importance of standing up to bullies, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Karen, in her relentless pursuit of conformity, taught me that sometimes the greatest victories come from embracing the things that make us different. I also discovered the unexpected value of history. The shed, which I had initially viewed as just a storage space, turned out to be a tangible link to the past, a reminder of the people who came before us and the stories they left behind. It was a lesson in humility, a reminder that we are all just temporary custodians of the places and things we inherit, and sometimes the most valuable treasures are hidden in the most unexpected places. Now, on warm summer evenings, I often find myself sitting in a rocking chair on the newly constructed porch of the restored shed, sipping lemonade and enjoying the sunset. The plaque from the Historical Society gleams proudly in the fading light. Neighbors, once hesitant to even acknowledge the shed's existence, now stop by to chat and admire its historical charm. Even Mrs. Henderson, armed with her pruning shears, occasionally lends a hand in tending the small herb garden I've planted nearby, and sometimes, just sometimes, I catch a glimpse of Karen driving slowly past my house, her face etched with a mixture of resentment and regret. I offer her a small, polite wave, a silent acknowledgement of her defeat. Then, I turn back to my shed, my sanctuary, my symbol of resistance and smile. The beige utopia of Harmony Glades may never be the same, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The shed stands tall, a quirky, historical reminder that even in the most uniform of communities, individuality can triumph.